Hey Procraftinators! Today I'm back with my monthly collab with Renee from Delaney Jane Cards, and this month Courtney Kreeber is joining us, so you'll be able to find the links to their videos down in my description box below. As you can see, this month I made a buttload of cards, 16 to be exact, and this month our theme is old school techniques, and I chose wax paper resist. So this is where you put a piece of wax paper into an embossing folder, emboss it, and then we're going to iron it onto a piece of glossy cardstock in a minute. So I took this first one was the folder from Doris, and I stuck it into the embossing folder and ran it through my very old Spellbinders Grand Caliber machine. The second piece, I crumpled it up and I'm putting it into the embossing folder, and then I'm going to run it through the machine again. And the reason why I crumpled it up is it just gives you a bit more texture, so you're not really sure what you're going to get with those ones. So it's kind of fun. So I'm showing you again that that's how I embossed it. You can see the embossing texture. So now we're putting a piece of glossy cardstock into a piece of typing paper, putting the wax paper on top, and then I'm putting another piece of glossy cardstock on top of that. This way we get a 2-for-1 deal, which is what I really like with these kind of cards. You don't have to get 2-for-1, but you get the impression on one side, and then you get the negative on the other side. Sometimes they turn out, sometimes they don't. And I will show you, I didn't actually do any on screen, but you get to see the finished pictures where what I did with some of the ones that I did not like. So we're ironing it on. I believe I put my iron on cotton. You don't want to over iron it or the wax will go into the paper and it doesn't look very good. So you just kind of want to iron it, and then as you saw, I kind of pulled up the corner just to see if the wax got onto the paper, and then you're done. So I believe I just kind of ironed it over, I don't know, 5-6 times, something like that. Depends on how hot your iron is. And then I'm doing again just to show you again, glossy paper, wax paper, and then glossy paper again. And it does need to be glossy paper, otherwise the wax will just kind of absorb into the regular cardstock. So this first one that I'm going to do, we're doing it with distress inks, and this is how I learned how to do this technique. You just put on ink of some sort. It doesn't have to be distress inks, but you just want to dye ink of some sort, and you blend it over. You could do the brayer technique too. I never really think to do that with my inks, to be honest. But so you just want to put ink of some sort onto the cardstock. And so I flashed the colors up on the screen. I believe I did picked raspberry, abandoned coral, and festive berries on this one. And for each one of these, I'm only going to finish one card, and we're not doing all 16. Don't you worry. So each one I did a background on screen, and then I took one of the favorite backgrounds out of the 4 for each one, and I made it into a card. It's not necessarily going to be the same background that I did. I just picked one of my favorites. I believe it's actually the last one that we do that I actually did the background and the card to match it. But so sorry about the confusion there. I just happened to pick my favorite out of each one. So once you get the ink on here, you're going to want to wipe it off of the wax that's on the card. So it shows through. It actually gets the resist, you know. So you want to get the ink off the wax so it kind of shows through. So I'm popping the embossing folder that I used on the screen, so you can see how the difference between the embossing folder and what I got. Now remember, I did crumple some of these and some of them I didn't. So here's another one. That's the embossing folder that I used, and that's what I got. And you're also, some of these were the negative too. So some of them don't look at all like what the embossing folder actually looked like. So that one's my favorite, that henna one. That one's probably my favorite out of all of them. That is the one that I actually finished the card with, that we're doing on screen. There it is. That's the finished card. And then we're going to make it. So I stacked 3 or 4, maybe 5 of these die cuts on top of each other off screen. And then I'm going to dab it off on my mat so I don't get glue everywhere, especially since distress inks are water reactive, so I didn't want to make a mess. And then I took the Simon Says stamp birthday word mix 1, one of those little sentiments that come off the million sentiments that you get, and I popped it on there. And then we're going to take the My Favorite Things Big Birthday Wishes stamp set. And I love this, the sentiment from here, that stamp set. We're stamping it in Memento Tuxedo black ink and putting that on the inside. And then for most of these cards, oh, nope, I lie, we're not there yet. So there's little hearts in that stamp set, and I'm going to take a heart from each one and stamp it in the coordinating dye inks that I used for the front of the card, and stamp them on the inside. And for each of these cards, all 16 that I did, you can find all the details for each of the cards over on my blog post if you want to know more about them, exactly what I used on every single one that I'm not showing on screen. And the blog post will be in my description box below, by the way. And then I'm going to attach the front of the card. We're going to be finishing up in here in a minute. I'll just attach the front of the card, and then I believe I'm going to put a Nuvo glitter pen, or aqua shimmer pen, on the hooray and the little heart. And what I don't show for each one of these cards is that I do finish some of them up with Nuvo drops. This one I didn't, but on some of them I do finish them up with Nuvo drops. You'll be able to see those in the finished card pictures too, which ones I did and which ones I didn't. And you can get all the colors and all that over on my blog. There's the finished card. And for some reason it didn't show the sparkle this time in my camera. I'm not sure why. And so, oh, that's right, I forgot. Most of these cards, when I trimmed them down to a matte size, I kept the little strips and I glued them onto the inside just to bring a bit of color to the inside. I'm going to cut the excess off, and then we'll have a finished card. I love that little pop of color. I think I'm going to start doing that more often when I make an ink blended panel. So there's the 4 cards that I finished with the Distress ink blending over the Wax Resist. Now we're going to do Distress Oxides, which isn't too much different, but it is a little different. So we used iced spruce, peeled paint, and chipped sapphire on this one. And this was an interesting combination. For some of these ink blended combinations, I just went on Pinterest and looked up Distress ink combinations and decided to try some new combinations. I don't usually go very far outside of my box with combinations, and since I was making so many cards, I didn't want them all to look the same, obviously, because I usually don't experiment so very much with my ink blended combinations. So I thought, well, let's give some of these a try. And so I wrote down some combinations that I found on Pinterest. Some were Christina Werner's combinations, and some were, oh geez, I don't remember who all I grabbed combinations for, but I just wrote some down and thought, well, let's give this a try. And I don't remember whose combination this was, but it was definitely outside of my box, and I really kind of liked it. I mean, it was a little hard to get some of those colors to blend together because they're so different, but I definitely like the way this one turned out. And this is not one that I finished on screen, but you will see the finished card at the end when I show all 4 of them. And I definitely like the way that it turned out. It was definitely way different than something I would normally have thought to try on my own. And this one definitely looks different when I wipe it off. You'll see here in a minute when I wipe it off, the resist really shows through. The oxides definitely, they cover up that resist, but then when you wipe it off with the towel, it definitely makes a big difference. See how much that just brightens up. And so there's the folder I used, the diamond netting from Fun Stamper's Journey. And then this one is the Tide set. Oh yeah, there's two folders in this set. And then Spellbinder's Botanical Frame. That one totally does not look anything like what it was supposed to. I don't know if that was the negative or what, but that didn't look anything like that. So this is the one we're going to finish. I really like the way this resist turned out a lot. And so some of these I did use some craft kits, which you can't get anymore, but I don't know, I really enjoy the tonic craft kit dyes. So I tend to use them quite a bit. I don't necessarily make what's in the kit all the time, but I use the dyes separately, the dyes and stamps separately a lot. So I put that on some iridescent vellum, and then we're going to glue it down. So a lot of these are really simple cards. So as I really wanted the backgrounds to show and shine on their own, because that's really what this is all about, is the backgrounds, obviously. And I was really pleased. Oh, here's Soleil, my cat. She had to join, and my husband insisted that I not cut her out. She enjoys crafting with me, whether it's sewing or card making. And she's gonna, yep, I was gonna say she's gonna make another appearance, because she could not take no for an answer. So then I grabbed this friend sentiment word from a Courtney stamp set, and I just like the font of it. I've got several stamp sets that have the word friend, and so I just picked one and took it out. I'm gonna heat emboss it with white, and grabbed a little banner from, I don't think that was from the same set. I probably should have wrote that down. Anyways, so then I took some aged mahogany, which is one of the colors that I ink blended on the front, and stamped that on the inside with I Think of You Often. And then the Altenew stamp set that I grabbed that from, I put it up on the screen. I think it was Cooled Elegance, but now I don't remember. I should have paid attention when that flashed on the screen. Anyway, it had some hearts in it, and I took and stamped them in each of the colors that I had ink blended on the front. And so we're going to finish that up here in a second. And yeah, there were several hearts in this, so I just picked one of each for each color and stamped them on there. And that finishes, oh nope, that doesn't finish up this card. We're going to put some Nouveau Aqua Shimmer pen on it. So be really careful when you do this. I swear, because they were white die cuts, every single one of them, that Nouveau Aqua Shimmer pen touched the front of that card and got a little smudge on it. I was so mad. Probably should have done that before I put the die cuts on the card, because I am a messy crafter. So then we're gonna, yep, those are the 4 cards that I did in the Distress Oxides. I think they turned out pretty good. And as you can see, one of those I actually die cut a background die out of it, and that is what I did with the ones that I did not like the way the backgrounds turned out. I mean, they weren't bad, but they just didn't like the way they turned out. So I just did cut a background die out of each one of the ones that I just didn't care for. So now we're doing the Dialouge sprays. And these ones were, well, interesting. They did not resist the ink like I thought they would. So here I sprayed a couple colors on there, and they flashed up on the screen while I was talking and not paying attention. So then I let it dry. Well, I dabbed off some of the ink that really pulled on there, and then I let it dry. And I thought that on the wax area it would resist, like, you know, it wouldn't dry and it would resist, so you could just wipe it off. As you see here, that is not happening. It's just kind of smearing around and covering up the resist. So I was like, well, crap, now what? Well, the inks are reactive with water, so I sprayed a little bit of water on my towel here and started wiping. Sprayed some more because it's kind of working, but not really. So I got it more wet and started wiping, and now it's starting to work a little bit better. So then I had to get more water and spray and wipe and spray and wipe. Oh, and then I bent my paper. That was smooth. So the theory, you know, the moral of the story here is the dilutions don't really work as well, but they did work. You just have to keep, you know, getting your towel wet and wiping. You could spray the panel a little bit, but don't get it too wet, or it just kind of merges all into one color. So I definitely recommend just getting your rag wet and wiping it off that way. That's the way I suggest. So then here's the backgrounds again with each embossing folder that I used. I liked this one too. I think that's the one that's the one I ended up using as a finished card. That one was my favorite. This one didn't turn out so well. I think I ended up I didn't die cut that one. It was all right. This one I don't know what's up with that embossing folder. It just didn't do a good impression. So here's the card we're going to finish. So that houndstooth piece, that was just in my you know how every crafter has a box of random stuff they didn't use? Well, I think that was from a die cut, and I used like the inner part of, you know, the outer part of it, and that was the inner part or whatever, and it just got thrown in my random stuff drawer. So I can't tell you really what die that's from or what exactly that came from, but it was in my random parts drawer, and I just happened to like the graphic look of it, so it got used. And then I popped it up on some foam tape, and then I had to decide where exactly I wanted it. If I wanted the middle, if I wanted it at the top, and I decided in between the two. So then we're going to put it on the card front. And you'll notice that I have writing on the back of all these. That's because in order to keep track of 16 cards, that was the best way to do it, was to write everything on the back. And then, of course, when I went to go put these together, then I had to take pictures and transfer it to Post-it notes or, you know, whatever. I had to keep track of all the supplies because I could not remember what I used on all 16 cards. Now we're going to use the Big Birthday Wishes stamp set again. I'll stamp that on there in Memento Tuxedo Black. And I didn't realize that my magnet was sitting on top of that popped up sentiment, so that is why that was not stamping well. Smooth move, Amanda. Smooth move. But I did get it eventually. Third time's a charm, right? Or maybe that was the fourth. I don't know. I wasn't counting. Were you? So then I used the strip again. Strip from the card panel. I liked how it brought in a pop of color, saving those little strips, and they didn't end up in the trash can or my random junk drawer, because that's getting pretty full, I'll tell you what. I have all these little strips and all these little pieces and all this stuff that I haven't used. It's getting ridiculous, I'll tell you. Do you guys have a little random drawer of stuff and pieces? All right, so here's the finished cards, by the way. Now we're on to Oxide Sprays, and this is the last one. So these worked way better than the Dilutions, I'll tell you what. So we got some Wilted Violet and the Peacock Feathers. Now this is the one that I did. I showed you the background, and I'm going to finish this one. So then I dabbed off some extra excess, and I let it dry. And then we're going to wipe it off. And these actually wiped off without water or anything. I wish I could wipe things off and do things as fast as I do in my videos. The magic of editing. Look at her go. And then, oh, here we go. So we're going to show you the backgrounds with the embossing folders again. That tied one really does kind of look cool. Like I said, and this must be the negative one because you really can't see. Well, and the trick with this is to use some darker contrasted colors, by the way. That's one thing I did learn here, is to use some contrasting colors. The light colors just didn't work so well with the white emboss, and I should have thought about that. I really should have thought about that. I mean, well, this one has lighter colors and it showed up, but I think it's because the lines on it were darker. All right, so we're going to finish this one off. And this one I used one of the Tonic Craft kits again, and I had this one cut for another card, and then I decided I didn't like it, so it didn't get used on that card. So I had this one pre-cut, and I put some Xyron adhesive on it. And by the way, if you do have a Xyron machine and you get frustrated with the little stringy things, put your paper in there first and then die cut it. You don't get the little stringy things. Somebody told me that in a Facebook group, and my mind was blown. So this worked out really well. I didn't have all the little stringy things. So I'm totally going to use my Xyron machine more often with little intricate die cuts because of that. All right, so then I'm going to glue it down, and I kind of did this off screen mostly, so I ended up cutting it out, but I was holding it up to the light so I could see where I could apply my adhesive without it showing through the vellum. And then we're going to put it on the card base. Sorry, I needed some water. My mouth is getting really dry. And then we're going to stamp the inside sentiment after I get it on the card base here. And that's Altenew Quilt Elegance. I pretty much only use 2 or 3 stamp sets for this. I don't like to make repetitive cards, like the same thing over and over again. So this is my way of doing repetitive cards. We'll make them different but the same. So I used a couple of the same stamp sets, but all my cards were different. And I used a couple of the same dies too, but most of my cards looked different. Obviously, very different. But use a couple of the same things, so you kind of do repetitive, but not really. They all look very different. So then again, I use my little strip. I'm gonna cut off the excess. I believe the card is done. Yes. I hope that you enjoyed the cards today. And don't forget, the links for Renee and Courtney's projects are down in the description box below. And as always, have a great day.